Good morning. My name is Gene Chen, and I am the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website at sfpublicworks.org. Because this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet. If you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice, urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. This public hearing is being held to consider the following items. Hearing Order 212740 to consider the removal of 24 street trees with replacement of 23 street trees adjacent to 1700 to 1756 Buchanan Street, which is the Buchanan Mall, Osaka Way. And also Hearing Order 212741 to consider the removal of one street tree without replacement adjacent to 699 Rhode Island Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and assist our Director of Public Works in making a determination. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and provide my recommendations to the director who will make the final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows. First, Public Works will present the case. There is no time limit for this presentation. Next, the property owner or representative may speak. Then any member of the public who wants to speak will have an opportunity. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when 30 seconds remain. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. If you are a member of the public wishing to speak, please wait until I call for public comments. If you are on the computer, please use Zoom's raise your hand feature to enter the queue. If you are dialing in by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If you are on the phone and muted, press *6 to unmute. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony by the end of this hearing to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. First, we will open the hearing to general public comments on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any general public comments on items not on today's agenda? Let's see. Josh?
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name is Josh Klipp, co-founder of Mission Verde, current vice chair of the Urban Forestry Council, though I make these public comments in my capacity as a member of the public. Just generally, a general public comment here that reminder to everyone who's listening that San Francisco has the smallest urban tree canopy of any major city in the United States, and that was determined in our 2014 Urban Forest Plan. Since that time, it's gotten even smaller. We have lost another percentage point essentially on our already pathetically small urban tree canopy. Additionally, we are failing to keep up with the Climate Action Plan's recommendations for tree planting. Those are not recommendations as niceties, those are recommendations for our future sustainability and resilience as a city. That Climate Action Plan, which was formed, by the way, in response to the city's 2019 declaration that we're in a climate emergency. Not only are we not keeping up with the number of trees that we should be planting, We're hundreds of trees behind in what we should be planting, all while we've got $4 million sitting in Public Works Adopt a Tree Fund not being used to put trees in the ground. So here we are talking about today the potential removal of dozens of trees. We're doing this at a time when last month in March, we exceeded several 80-degree days in a row. Here we are in April, experiencing multiple days of heavy rains that are overwhelming our combined sewer and stormwater system. Something that helps with hot weather and absorbing water from away from our combined sewer system, sewer stormwater system, are trees. They're not just a part of a crucial part of our ecosystem. They are now a critical part of our ability to safely live in our city right now and in the future. So if we're going to approve tree removals, I would ask that we seriously consider every possible option other than removal. Removal must absolutely be an option of last resort. And it's not enough also to just say that we're going to put more trees in the ground because it's not that simple. It takes more than 3 years for a tree to establish, and that three years is 3 years of watering. And it doesn't take much investigation into the city's watering systems to understand our watering systems for our trees are a patchwork and a mess. We cannot rely on simply saying we're going to put a tree in the ground and that will be sufficient and our work will be done here. So I would just ask that all these things be considered in the context of what we are looking at here today of the proposed removals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other general public comments, I will close this item. For the next two items, I'm going to make a switch. And here, order 212-741 first, followed by order 212-740. May I have the department make its presentation and then start with order 212-741? Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Brian Ong with San Francisco Urban Forestry. This is for the tree removal hearing for April 15th, 2026. Before I go into the orders, I'm just going to do a little background, a few informational slides before we dive into the cases. Can you guys see my screen? The Public Works
Yes.
tree removal? Yes, okay. Okay, so the goal is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure and in the public right-of-way. BUF's mission is to preserve and grow the urban forest while balancing the safety and needs of a growing and evolving city. So this is Street Tree SF. It's basically our $19 million annual set aside for the city's general funds for Street Tree SF. We had a census completed in 2016. Used to create priorities and a routine proactive tree pruning schedule for the city's 125,000 trees. And so you can go to our website and see when your tree has been pruned, when it is upcoming, and what has been completed in the city. So this is like what we've pretty much completed in the city is in the gray. What we're doing is in the green is what we're doing for the fiscal year for this year. And then for the next fiscal year is the dark green. And so a tree ordinance establishes authorization and standards for addressing a wide range of issues regarding trees. San Francisco's urban forestry ordinance is codified under Article 16 of the Public Works Code. Basically, a removal permit is required to remove street trees, significant trees, and landmark trees. Some important updates from February 2022. If the department is removing a tree, a replacement is required within 120 days or added and tracked on a delayed replacement tree report. If a tree cannot be planted in situ, then it must be replanted at a nearby location. If a property owner or applicant is granted a removal permit for removal of a healthy tree, the department shall require a replacement street tree of equivalent value to the one removed or impose an in lieu fee. So an example is if the owner pays the difference between the appraised value of the subject tree minus the value of the replacement tree. The value of the replacement tree is based on the standard in lieu fee for a 24-inch box tree installation. And so in most cases, a tree removal permit will not be granted if the tree is healthy and structurally sound. Basically, our tree removal criteria If it's dead, dying, not thriving, poor species for location, growth is no longer sustainable, there's damage to the private property, if the tree is hazardous, imminent hazard, if the tree is small, less than 4 inches in diameter, and the construction requires removal, and the tree can be replaced in kind. Also, if the tree will be destabilized by construction, there is no feasible workaround. Applicant must provide sufficient supporting documents. If the tree is in good or fair condition, applicant must pay appraised value for loss of the tree if it can't be replaced. And so if a removal permit is granted, the property owner is required to plant a replacement tree and pay the difference between appraised value and the new site based on the in lieu fee structure. And if a tree site is to be lost and the tree is in good condition, the appraised value or in lieu fee will be assessed, whichever is greater. Example for a tree approved for a new driveway, or in this case, maybe a curb ramp. And if a street tree SF removal, BUF must plant a replacement tree or locate a replacement site, mark as delayed replacement. If a removal permit is being granted to a property owner for removal of a dead, dying, hazardous street tree, the tree is required to be replaced. If not sufficient space, there is no in lieu fee assessed, and the property owner is not required to replace it off-site. So some common defects in ficus. Just in general, poor taper with girdling roots or infrastructure, large stems with poor unions, included bark, narrow angle of attachments. This is some examples of poor taper with girdling roots or infrastructure, and some other large ficus that have been damaged with large stems and poor unions. Okay, so to start our hearing order number 212741. This is for 699 Rhode Island Street. This is to consider the removal of one street tree without replacement adjacent to 699 Rhode Island Street. The staff has denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. So this is the subject tree. It's a Platanus London plane at 699 Rhode Island Street. The tree is about 20 feet. The DBH diameter is about 9 inches. The tree is in fair condition. There seems to be no deficiencies in the structural health or health issues other than a slight lean due to shade from the adjacent tree. But basically, the tree was proposed to be removed in order to install a curb ramp at this site. It seems that there's just like a curb ramp that needs to be installed at this location. So the city has denied the tree, and the plans indicate the location of the curb ramp, but do not indicate if a bulb out or other modifications can be made to retain the healthy tree that can't be replaced. And basically, could the curb ramp be placed in a different location on the block? We denied it because the tree is being removed and won't be replaced, and we believe that we do value the safety of pedestrians for curb ramps, but we think that there could be a different design made to retain the tree and still install the curb ramp. We're just asking what is the reasoning for installing this curb ramp currently and what the impetus for intervention is. And so you can see here, this is the curb ramp. This is the tree. It's kind of circled over here and where the curb ramp is going to go. So here's over off on the left-hand side of this photo. This is the opposite side of the curb, and basically the curb ramp is going to go straight across into where this tree is, right where this front door to this house is. And we're just wondering if the tree or the curb ramp could be shifted over so it can meet the other curb ramp, and not having to remove the tree, because then we'd lose a mature tree and a space to plant a tree. We're just seeing if a bulb out or something else can be redesigned for the curb ramp. So the location of the current curb cut cannot be used as a planting location due to proximity of the utility pole. And basically, there are many other intersections with higher priority for public safety to focus on. This is the high traffic injury network map, and basically it is slightly outside of the high injury mapped network area. So there are many other intersections with higher priority for public safety to focus on. There have been no pedestrian nor bicycle collisions at this intersection since, as far as we know, 2006. The intersection does not show up on any highway injury network maps. So as an example, these intersections are known as high priority intersections that could benefit more from a curb ramp installation and have more immediate impact without loss of traffic calming tree canopy. And we have found that trees do slow traffic. There have been studies that trees, at intersections do slow traffic down and prevent people from speeding. People don't get tunnel vision if there are trees around because they're just seeing just concrete everywhere. So we do believe that trees can help reduce these high injury areas. And so we're just asking if the curb ramp can be redesigned. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, we have denied the tree for removal. That's it.
Okay, thank you. May I have the applicant speak on this? Mr. Jensen? I think you need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, good morning. So all good considerations and statements about general considerations for pedestrian safety and the need and desire for street trees and traffic calming and pedestrian safety and so forth. But the specifics at this particular location are quite constrained. The first thing that we need to understand is the extent and limits of unmarked crosswalks as well as marked crosswalks. They're both kinds. They're both there at this intersection, as it is the case to most T intersections in the city. There are 3 pedestrian crosswalks here. They're all unmarked, but they are legal pedestrian crossings, and that's the point at which we need to put in curb ramps, which are mandated by federal and state and local statutes and regulations. They're basically fundamentally civil rights requirements that we have to meet for accessibility. In doing so, all locations we have to take into consideration, of course, pedestrian safety and vehicle movements and everything else, right? All those things matter every time we touch anything in the public right-of-way. So the impetus for doing this is not to address the high collision safety locations that we have mapped that were presented earlier, but accessibility. As we do so, safety and traffic engineering and everything else always comes into play. There's multiple parameters that we have to solve for whenever we're putting in anything in the public right-of-way, and not least of which is curb ramps. To the point about bulb outs, if we could have done that here, we would have proposed it, but it's physically not possible because the alignment of the crossing, the alignment of the crosswalk mostly overlaps the adjoining driveway there. So physically, the only place to get a curb ramp in alignment with the crossing is exactly where that tree is. We can't go further to the right because we're in the middle of the driveway. We can't go further to the left because we're down on the vertical curve of the roadway, and the cross slope, the curvature of that is much too steep for accessibility. So we are required to put the curb ramp, in this case, in one place and one place only, which is exactly where that tree is. Even if we put in a bulb out, which can be no more than 6 feet
30
deep,
seconds.
no more than 6 feet deep, the curb ramp would be directly in line with the tree. So the tree would be in the required clear landing area of the curb ramp. So that doesn't work either. So we're really stuck here. This is a place where for us to get the required curb ramp in, that tree has to go away. We're, there should be some place to put a replacement tree around here somewhere. So I'm not sure why the proposal is to have no replacement tree. Seems like there should be some place to be able to put a tree in somewhere around here. That wouldn't have this problem, right? So that's it in a nutshell. I can share some drawings if you like, if there's a way to post that, but I think you get the point. But I've did sketch over this street view photo here to help illustrate where the extent of the unmarked crossings are. But here in this drawing, if you project the face of curb at the bottom of the drawing on 19th Street up across Rhode Island, that's the left side of the pedestrian crossing, which you see is well into the neighboring driveway. And then in this case, if you then project the left edge of the proposed curb ramp down across Rhode Island, that's the left edge of the unmarked crossing. So that curb ramp has to be there. And if you move it straight forward down the page 6 feet to the maximum bulb out, the tree is still right in the way. It's right at the top of the curb ramp in the landing area. So it physically can't stay there either way. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to public comments. Josh?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm also a certified access specialist, meaning certified to talk about accessibility in built environments by the California Division of the State Architect. And I've worked on dozens of Title II entities, transition and self-evaluation plans. Just for context in my comments here, that I'm not making this about civil rights. I'm very familiar with what that all entails. It is striking that the department notes that there has not been a thorough explanation of different locations and alternative designs, and that this is not a high priority on the city's high injury network. There's a reason it's not a high priority. It's because people don't actually cross here. And the reason you don't cross here is because there's no stop sign at this intersection. It's on a hill, and cars coming up have low visibility, and cars going down are flying through this intersection. And the reason I know this is because this intersection is a few blocks from my house. I'm not usually this blunt in my public comment, but this crosswalk is dumb. There are so many intersections where around this neighborhood where I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands, and this is not one of them. It's not even close. And I can't even think of a time or reason that anyone traversing up or down Rhode Island on these 2 blocks and try to cross at this intersection. Matter of fact, I would propose that putting an intersection here actually makes it more dangerous for pedestrians because of how the traffic moves up and down this street. I'm going to back up Brian's statement that trees are actually traffic calming, which is what we need more of at this particular intersection. If you want to actually protect pedestrians here, put in a darn stop sign. If you put in a crosswalk, all you're doing is inviting people to walk out into a dangerous intersection with no stop sign. So this proposed removal for this proposed crosswalk is not only dumb and unnecessary, it actually makes this intersection less safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. John?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So yes, I would agree with the prior Buff and also Josh about this because both have looked at the location and also see that there's no reason to since it's not part of the high energy network, and also because of the where it is in San Francisco, it's not a high priority, and therefore putting in these crosswalks that have not been there before only puts more liability on the city, because now you're putting in a crosswalk at a location where there wasn't one before. You're slowing down traffic supposedly, and if there's no stop sign there, then there's no reason for the people in cars and bicycles and so forth to stop. So it's not just cars, but also bicycles. And then we have people on skateboards and other things, and now we have these motorcycles and so forth going down up and down, all over the place, and we have to consider all these different types of modes, and also the Ubers and other entities that are different type of modes of transportation that are using these streets for whatever reason, because they have deliveries and so forth, and you're inviting trouble and more liability to the city. So I would leave as is, and as suggested by Buff, to not to replace the tree or remove the tree, and to deny the appeal for placing a sidewalk at this location. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I actually had some questions for Kevin. Kevin, will there be a stop sign installed at this intersection? Is it going to be striped? The crosswalk, is the crosswalk going to be striped? And what happens if we do not install curb ramps over here?
Yeah, the provision of crosswalk markings and stop signs are traffic engineering concerns, and those are the jurisdiction of SFMTA. I would point out that there are existing crossings here already. There's 3. There are always crossings at intersections where sidewalks meet at intersecting streets. The definition of where a crosswalk is unmarked and marked are defined in the California Vehicle Code. This is an existing pedestrian crossing now. We're not making it a pedestrian crossing. It is, and always has been, a pedestrian crossing. We simply have to make it accessible under Title II of the ADA. And I would point out that none of the arguments that have been brought up by the 2 prior commenters have any bearing whatsoever on compliance with Title II of the ADA. I've been an ADA coordinator with the city for 30 years now, and the safety arguments, the injury arguments are utterly irrelevant and not any part of the criteria that we have to consider for where we put in curb ramps for accessibility.
What happens if we do not install a curb ramp here? Is there any penalty that we incur as a city?
We incur additional liability on the part of the city for not complying with the federal, state, and local mandates for providing accessible rights of way. When we do alterations to public right of way, that includes alterations to the crosswalk, we are required to put in curb ramps to the maximum extent technically feasible, which is exactly what we do. So if we don't do that, and if we continue to not do that on a pattern and practice basis, every time we do that, we increase the likelihood of the city being sued and having to make legal remedies, which can sometimes be very expensive, because not only do we have to pay possible damages to plaintiffs and attorneys' fees, we have to do the work. Sometimes that entails mandated expenditures that the courts impose on jurisdictions that haven't been complying with their obligations under the ADA, which sometimes can involve appointing a special master to oversee the jurisdiction's work so that they are forced to do the work that they haven't been doing. And there's plenty of examples of those in some gigantic settlements that have come out of it, and court orders. So we do our best to avoid that. We also do our best to maintain the urban canopy. Again, I don't see personally any reason that we can't find an alternative location for a tree around here, but this one cannot stay here for us to meet our mandate under ADA.
Have we reached out, or do we normally reach out to SFMTA traffic engineering to coordinate crosswalk striping, maybe even stop signs, possibly?
Sometimes if we need to have existing crossings modified to correlate with curb applications, also MTA will propose changes, and that requires us to coordinate with them. In cases like this, though, it's not necessary to put in marked crossings nor stop signs, and it may not be something that MTA feels is warranted based on their traffic engineering requirements. From a pedestrian safety sightline standpoint, there's a vertical curvature on the road here, and where we have traffic coming uphill from the left, we want this from a pedestrian safety standpoint to be the accessible crossing, because drivers coming in both directions from the right and uphill from the left can see those pedestrians clearly. The vertical curvature of the road doesn't block their view of the pedestrian as they're crossing at this point. So this is the ideal, best location for a pedestrian crossing. It's the most safe. Safety is addressed by the California Vehicle Code. All users of the public right-of-way have rights and responsibilities. They have to follow the rules of the road. People who are blind and who are disabled are acutely aware of their safety when they're crossing the streets, because it's one of the most dangerous things that they have to do when they're getting around. That said, it's still essential for them to get around and use the public right-of-way. The public sidewalk network is paramount, and under our obligations under Title II of the ADA to have an accessible pedestrian network, because that connects everything: transit, jobs, homes, civic life, everything. You have to have accessible sidewalk networks and crosswalks. It's a very high priority under Title II of the ADA.
Can we reach out to SFMTA to see if they want to possibly stripe the crosswalk here? That way it'll be more visible for drivers coming down Rhode Island, because it is a straight shot. There's no stop sign, so
yeah, MTA is aware of this too, that the providing of marked crossings and stop signs doesn't necessarily ensure public safety. There have been a number of studies on this from
no, it doesn't, but it
Federal
just makes it a
Highway
little bit more
Administration.
visible.
But it's sometimes that making it more visible actually still increases the likelihood of crashes, and that's been documented in some locations, right?
Okay.
There's federal FHWA
I'm just
studies
hoping that
so
we can
it's
reach
strictly
out to SFMTA, and that's all I'm asking.
I'm saying we certainly can, and
Okay.
that's we have no problem doing that, but ultimately the decision is theirs whether they think it
Correct.
helps
Understood.
or hurts safety. Yeah.
Yep, understood. Thank you. All right. I have no other questions, so I will go ahead and close this item, and I will make my recommendations to the director. Next item.
This is Brian Ong, San Francisco Urban Forestry. This is for order number 212740. This is for 1756 Buchanan Street. It's basically the Buchanan Mall, Osaka Way. Basically, this is to consider the removal of 24 street trees with replacement of 23 street trees adjacent to 1700 to 1756 Buchanan Street, the Buchanan Mall, Osaka Way. The staff has approved the removals and the public has protested. So basically, this is reconstruction of the Buchanan Mall, Osaka Way corridor. Basically, they're going to be redoing and reconstructing this corridor, regrading to make it more ADA accessible. So this is just the site plan of what it looks like with the new trees being installed. And so, yeah, this is just the plan. The trees will be replaced with larger stature trees. It'll be a ginkgo biloba Fairmont, and then the prunus Eodensis akebono. And both of these trees will get to about like 20 to maybe like 30 feet tall. And so all the trees that exist in the corridor are small stature trees. They're all less than like 10 feet. Maybe one is 12 feet, but they're all less than 10 feet tall. And so the replacement trees will be larger stature trees, in the future. And so this is just an example of what the trees will look like. On the left-hand side is the kind of what the ginkgo will look like, and then on the right-hand side is what the prunus will look like. And then this is a photo of what's there right now. It's the prunus ornamental cherries. That's what they should look like, but they are not that big and full, so that they don't really look like this at all. They're a lot less smaller, and they've been there for a long time. And this is just another photo of what they should look like, in a urban setting. And then I'll show you the trees, what they look like now. So this is the first site. There's 24 trees. They're basically almost all the same. There's about half of them are poor, half of them are in poor condition, and half of them are in fair condition. And so basically the reconstruction of the Buchanan Mall, Osaka Way, is to improvements to ADA accessibility, and then regrading. They're going to be regrading the entire corridor, which will cut major roots and destabilize trees. They're going to be redoing all the utilities in the corridor, and so basically 23 out of the 24 trees can be replaced. So I'm just going to go they're kind of like almost all the same. Some are poor, some are fair. So this is the first tree. It's less than 10 feet, 5-inch DBH. It's in poor condition, poor structure, damaged trunks. Here's a closer photo of the tree. And this is tree number 2. Again, this is less than 10 feet tall. It's in fair condition. So these trees were taken, the pictures were taken, I believe, in like November. So they're not leafed out. They're leafed out now. I didn't get a chance to take a photo for what it looks like with the blossoms and everything. So some of them may look a little bit better than they do in these photos, but this one is fair. The structure is good, but there's exposed roots, and this one is just in fair condition. Here's another photo of the tree. It's okay. It's been here for a while. It just hasn't really grown that much. Here is this is tree number 3 at 1700 Buchanan Street. Again, this tree is less than 10 feet tall. It's in fair condition, not that many deficiencies. Here's another photo of the tree. And then this is 1700 tree site 4. Again, this is less than 10 feet tall, fair condition. I think this is a newer planted tree in the last like maybe 4 or 5 years, as you can still see from of the stakes of the tree. It's a slight lean, but that is usually can be corrected. Here is tree number 5 at 1700 Buchanan Street. Again, this is less than 10 feet tall. This has poor structure. There's been previous failures, included bark. Here's a closer photo of the tree. You can see over on the left-hand side, so a branch failure that never really healed correctly. So that's a spot for high risk of where the limb can fail. There's some included bark, creating weak attachments. So this tree is in poor condition. This is 1705 Buchanan Street. This is tree number 1 at the site. Again, less than 10 feet tall, DBH 6 inches, fair condition, exposed roots. Yeah, this is 1705 Buchanan Street. This is tree number 2. Again, this is less than 10 feet tall, fair condition. Again, exposed roots. A lot of these trees were planted very high, and so like most of the root crown and the roots are exposed, which is not healthy for the tree. Here's another photo of the tree. This is 1705 Buchanan Street, street site number 3. This is again less than just 10 inches. Sorry, it's supposed to be 10 feet. Fair condition. Again, exposed roots, exposed root crown. It's another photo of the tree. It's good structure. This is 1705 tree number 4. This tree is less than 10 feet tall, 2 inches in diameter. This tree has, I think it's another newly planted tree. Again, probably in the last like 3 to 5 years. So yeah. And then here's another photo of the tree. And then here's the site number 5 at 1705 Buchanan Street. This is less than 10 feet tall. It's in poor condition, poor structure. I think in the past the leader was vandalized and broken, so now the tree is kind of growing kind of at a weird angle, and one of the branches has become the leader, but still weakly attached. This is 1715 Buchanan Street, tree site number 1. This is less than 10 feet tall, fair condition, again, exposed roots. Here's another photo of the tree. And then this is 1723, right next to it. This is tree site number 1 for 1723 Buchanan Street. Again, less than 10 feet tall, fair condition, exposed roots. Another picture of the tree. And then this is 1723 tree site number 2. Again, less than 10 feet tall. This one, the condition is in poor condition. The leader was broken. You can kind of see on this photo on the right that the leader was broken, so the tree would need to be removed and replaced anyways. This is 1728 Buchanan Street. This is tree site number 1, less than 10 feet tall, 8 inches in diameter, fair condition, poor structure. There's kind of like two stems on this, but yeah. This is 1737 Buchanan Street, tree site number 1, less than 10 feet. It's in fair condition. Another photo of the tree. And then this is 1737 Buchanan Street, tree site number 2, less than 10 feet tall. This one is also in fair condition. Another photo of the tree. This is 1741 Buchanan Street, less than 10 feet tall. Again, this is poor condition. There's signs of poor root health, exposed roots. You can kind of see that there's some like growth at the roots, and it looks like it's like deteriorating a little bit. So yeah, it's poor structure. And then this is 1741 Buchanan Street, less than 10 feet tall, fair condition, exposed roots. This one is newly planted as well, but you can kind of see that they planted it kind of oddly. They didn't put enough soil there, so it's like a lot of the roots and the trunk is exposed. And then this is 1745 Buchanan Street, tree site number 1. Again, less than 10 feet tall, fair condition, exposed roots. You can kind of see here all this like root mass that should be under soil. This is 1745 Buchanan Street, tree site number 2, less than 10 feet tall, conditions fair, exposed roots. Here's some more photos of the tree. This is 1756 Buchanan Street, tree site number 1, less than 10 feet tall, 4 inches in diameter, poor structure. You can kind of see that the tree is growing at an odd angle. This is 1756 tree site number 2. Tree heights less than 10 feet tall, fair condition. Here's another photo. This is 1756 tree site number 3, less than 10 feet, 5 inches in diameter, fair condition. Another photo. And then this is the last tree, 1756, tree site number 20, tree site number 4, less than 10 feet, poor condition. The leader is broken. You can kind of see from this photo. Here's the leader was broken, and then here's like another failure of the tree. So poor structure. So most of these trees are, they're like maybe, 10, 15 plus years old in this area, and they're all less than 10 feet tall. They're all in the way of, as you're walking by, I hit my head and face multiple times just trying to walk by and take photos. What the project is going to do is they're going to remove the entire, excavate everything and then redo the entire corridor, planting new trees, larger stature trees that will grow larger and higher for clearance issues and everything. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, SF Public Works, Bureau of Urban Forestry has approved the removal of the 24 trees and replacement with 23. That's it.
Thank you. May I have the applicant present? Trent, let me go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I present?
Yeah.
Sure, just a moment. We'll promote you
Thank
to
you so much.
panelist and you'll accept.
Okay.
And then unmute yourself again.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see that.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good morning. My name is Trent Tiger, Project Manager at Public Works. I'm here today to discuss the tree removal requests for the Japantown Buchanan Mall Osaka Way project. This is along Buchanan Street between Post and Sutter, what is known as Buchanan Mall or Osaka Way, which is a pedestrian mall designed by artist Ruth Asawa along with city planner Rai Akamoto in the 1960s and 70s. And so Brian did a great job showing the existing conditions of the trees. I'll just kind of focus on the project improvements. This project was championed by the community to get state grant funds in order to improve the mall and was highlighted in the JHS Japantown Cultural Heritage and Economic Sustainability Strategy Report. As Brian said, the project will basically be renovating the entire mall in order to resolve a number of walkability and ADA concerns throughout the space that the community had raised, including the cobblestone river, which will be replaced with ADA compliant pavers, as well as rehabilitating the Ruth Asawa origami fountains, which haven't been running for a number of years. We'll be installing new plumbing and electrical system to get them running again. And as you can see here, we're also doing a number of other improvements, including new pedestrian lighting. We're lining the sewer main. We're replacing the water main. We're adjusting some of the utilities. As you can see, we're going to be planting more trees, both cherry blossom and ginkgo trees, rebuilding the Post Street crosswalk, curb ramps, and creating these planters along with seeding and irrigation system. And so this project had a pretty extensive planning phase, including 3 community workshop events with very positive feedback, along with a number of community update meetings during the design phase. We also held regular meetings with community leaders, including the Japantown Task Force, Japantown Community Benefit District, Nihon Machi Parking Corporation, and the Ruth Asawa family. In addition, we also worked with a community cultural design consultant to make sure the design met the community's vision as well as was respectful of the Japantown history here. And then on the top here is just a rendering of what the space will look like after the project is finished. This is also kind of a top-down view of the space. So as I mentioned, we'll be installing these or constructing these new planters with seating around the edges of them, along with planting the ginkgos and the tree wells separate from that. There was a strong desire from the community to see additional landscaping plants as well as the seating. And so as Brian kind of did a great job going through it, the community considers the health of the trees to be in pretty poor condition as well as stunted growth. Whether they were planted, whether it was how they were planted, the amount of soil that was there, or other conditions, it basically just didn't provide them an opportunity to grow very well. And so with this, the planters that we'll be constructing as well as the tree wells will have significantly more soil and a much better chance of growth. As Brian was saying, all the trees are basically under 10 feet tall and probably closer to 6 feet. And so the actual growth of the trees should be closer to 20 feet or higher. And so with the planting of the ginkgos, that was a strong request from the community. Also add some height and color variation with seasonality. The space itself feels very large. It's basically a street without the actual pavement. But as you can see with the cobblestone river running down it, with the fountains and seating wall area, that's part of the Ruth Sawa's artistic intention. The amount of space that we're able to plant is much more kind of confined to the edges. But we're also dealing with a number of underground utilities. And of course, one of the biggest fixes of the space is fixing a number of ADA issues, which includes accessible business entries, accessible path of travel. And then, of course, we wanted the trees to actually have space to grow. So this is just another diagram kind of showing the condition of it. I think in a typical park or mall, there's significantly less utilities. This was originally a street and still has all the utilities you would expect of a street with a large sewer main running down it. You have restaurants everywhere, so you have all the PG&E water utilities running between them as well as telecoms. So the actual space where we were able to work in the space was limited. So we did a fair amount of design work to maximize what we could in the space.
Excuse me. I apologize. I lost the timer, but we did pass the time.
Okay.
Mr. Chan, did you want him to continue or have questions?
That's fine. That's basically most of my presentation.
Sorry, I was on mute. Trent, was that all? Did you have any other design criteria you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I had kind of all the key points and, just kind of, again, just highlighting the trees themselves are, poor to fair condition, but just the stunted growth really doesn't give them an opportunity to, and as most of the community may know, we're in the cherry blossom festival season right now. And so, the hope is that once this project is completed and the new trees are in, they'll actually have a much better cherry blossom season.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll open it up to public comments right now. Okay, Josh?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've been a volunteer planting leader with Friends of the Urban Forest for more than 15 years, and I was one of the planting leaders who planted these trees with Friends of the Urban Forest. So Brian is correct. These trees were planted within the last 10 to 15 years, which would explain why they're not big, because they haven't been there that long. And if they're in poor condition and poor structure, it's not because these are just old, decrepit trees, but rather maybe they weren't the right trees for that location or they weren't properly maintained, which makes me wonder why the city allowed those trees to be planted in this location to begin with. Why did FUF do all that work to get a bunch of volunteers like myself out on a Saturday morning to spend all that time getting these ultimately unsuccessful trees into the ground? It seems like these issues might have been foreseeable, especially since these types of trees don't do well in that microclimate, which just means this was all just a big waste of time and taxpayer dollars. On an accessibility note, I would just note that there have not been any major updates to the California Building Code or to the Americans with Disabilities Act Accessibility Guidelines, or ADAG, which would trigger some type of new accessibility upgrades to meet current code along a public right-of-way like this, which makes me wonder if accessibility compliance is the real reason or if that's just an excuse. Replacing cobble pavers, well, again, pardon my frankness, but duh. Cobbled rights of way have not been in compliance since the ADA was passed back in 1991. So why the heck has that even been allowed to exist in a public right of way like this is beyond me. We just heard one matter purporting to add a crosswalk in the name of compliance that is going to put more people in harm's way, and frankly didn't even sound like the ADA coordinator cared if there would be a stop sign to protect people. But here we're admitting we've allowed this dangerous walking surface to exist for years. So to someone like myself, these so-called accessibility improvements and rationale are head-spinning and nonsensical, and makes me wonder if there's any strategy around pedestrian safety and accessibility at all. It's just mind-boggling. And if the reason is that the trees themselves are the barrier to accessibility because their branches are too low, then why were these planted in a public right-of-way to begin with? So overall, I think the proposed removal highlights not only leaning on accessibility as an excuse, but that this planting was doomed from the beginning. And why did Public Works even allow that to happen? And I'm just going to say that on a personal note, this is one of the reasons I don't do as much volunteer tree planting with FUF as I used to. It was because of proposed removals like this. Because why should I spend hundreds of volunteer hours around San Francisco putting trees in the ground only to have to sit through hearings like this 10 to 15 years later, explaining why these trees never should have been there to begin with? That's all I'm going to say about this.
Thank you. John?
Good morning. Well, a couple of things. I was there last week, took pictures. I see, we're right in the middle of the Japantown Blossom Fair, or whatever it's called. And so I only counted, I didn't see that many cherry blossoms because this is a cherry blossom festival. And it started last week, and then it's going to also continue until next weekend. And I didn't see that many cherry blossoms. Why do you have a festival called Cherry Blossoms and you're not putting in cherry blossom trees? And it is showed in the blueprint you're putting some other trees in. That was showed by the second entity that presented. So I question that just on the fact of here that is a big festival. Japantown is in an upswing of coming back as a mall, and because of the people interest citywide and throughout the country, visitors, so forth, visit that area. I can understand fixing the mall. This is like the third issue we've had. First, it was the crosswalk across Geary. Then the second was the crosswalk on Post, and now we're dealing with the mall. And each one of those locations, you took out trees. So it seems to be just a continuation of taking out trees, three with this project. And here we have to come back and hear about the biggest one, this one. How many trees you're taking out now? I'm not clear why you say the description, you're taking out 24 and only putting in 23. Why can't you put in 24? If you're taking out 2 dozen, why can't you put in back 24? And also, again, where is the sensitivity to the community, Japantown, for cherry blossoms? I didn't hear that many of them going in. And also, I do agree, the cobblestones that are there and so forth, it's an issue. But I didn't have a problem, as Brian pointed out, about hitting my head taking pictures. So obviously, I don't know. So I'm just concerned in general of the sensitivity of this
30 seconds.
This project and how that affects the future. And I would hope that we have more trees put in than is suggested. And if you cannot put in that additional tree, it can go into the empty wells around the Buchanan Mall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Brian, I had some questions for you. The trees being proposed, are they adequate for this climate?
Brian Ong, San Francisco Urban Forestry. Yes, yeah, we planted some ginkgos. The cherries, some of the cherries that we've planted in the past don't do very well, but this is like a new species, so you know, a lot of times it's almost like, I hate to say it, trial and error, right? Um, so but like this cherry should do well. We're planting like newer species and better species that we think will do better. So yeah, this species of new cherries will be, you know, on paper will do fine in this area. And the ginkgo. We planted those ginkgos in the area already, some of them. With the other Japantown Plaza, Peace Plaza, we planted some trees for that project as well. Ginkgos for the community. So, and those have been doing pretty well.
Okay,
So
how long has
yes,
that been?
yes. Maybe like a year, maybe a year or
Okay,
two that they've been in the ground. So, but so far they look fine. Yeah. So
okay,
to answer your question, yes.
okay. So the older, I guess, species was not really adequate for this microclimate?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other reasons why the current trees are not thriving other than, might not be the adequate tree for this microclimate, and that their root crown is exposed?
Um, maybe just like, yeah, I like Josh said, like poor maintenance. I'm not exactly sure who's maintaining the area and the cobblestones in the tree basins and backfilling the tree
Mm,
basins when needed. Um, you know, uh, yeah, I mean, it could be a number of different things.
yeah.
Climate
I,
change,
I I
yeah.
looked at it and it looks like these tree wells are at grade.
Hmm.
They're not protected. There is a slope to this street, pedestrian area. So I think when it rains, it might tend to wash out the tree basin and expose those tree roots. So, kind of goes back to maintenance.
Yeah. And then it looks like
Um,
it's been like there's been depression in the tree well, so I don't know what's underneath
mhm,
all these basins, but it looks like it's been slowly um sinking,
yeah.
basically, yeah.
Okay. Questions for Trent.
Yes.
Is there a reason why only 23 are being replaced and we couldn't fit in the 24 for a full 24 replacement?
Yeah, it just really came down to the spacing of it. I think, uh, as I mentioned, there's a number of utilities in the space, and what we wanted to do is actually create, you know, a better environment for the trees and, more soil
Mhm.
for them to actually grow. So, just the amount of space that was available to keep 6 foot path of travel on both sides, miss all the utilities that are out there, as well as kind of meet some other goals that we had. This really wasn't an additional space.
Okay. I saw one of the planners on your, I guess, overlay plan. Um, there might have been one planter that we maybe could enlarge. I don't know. Can you pull it up on the screen?
Yeah. So
It's the top left one in front of Forest Books.
yeah, we've actually did a number of variations on the planter sizing for all these. It just kind of came down to there's additional utilities kind of over in that space. So enlarging it
Okay.
creates actual, there's utilities that we would hit, and then it also creates pinch points that are a little hard to tell. And I'll try to point it out just with my mouse. As you can see, kind of the property line zigzags a bit all over the
Yeah.
place. Just by enlarging this in any direction, we either hit a utility or create a pinch point for path of travel.
Yeah.
And then I didn't mention it at the time or at the previous presentation portion, but we did have to work with the planning department as far a historical resource review, because this was kind of built by renowned artist and city planner in the 1960s. This isn't a historical district, but may become one in the future. So a number of the features are out here are still considered historic character defining features. So we really had to be very careful on exactly how we placed everything. You can imagine that we're not trying to overpower or eclipse the original design, but just kind of enhance and create additional kind of features by adding more plants, adding more
Yeah.
seats, but still kind of keep the original intention of the design from the 1960s.
Okay. And all the design features, trees, the colors, all that is in coordination with the community groups around there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're working pretty regularly with kind of a core group of stakeholders, community leaders out there, as well as with Ruth Asawa's family, basically the Ruth Asawa Linear Incorporation, basically a company that promotes and kind of takes care of Ruth Asawa's works. And so we worked with them specifically, as you can imagine, as we're proposing to replace the cobblestones, we work with them on the selection of like the granite pavers to make sure that it met kind of the color and intention for the design, how we're going about it, as well as working with the planning department on pretty much every other feature. You can see outside of the cobblestone river, hard to kind of tell, or you can see down here on number 4, exposed aggregate concrete. That was another character defining feature where we needed to more or less replace in kind, but just kind of in a better condition. And then there's another number of other elements out there. The Ruth Asawa benches that have kind of these storybook kind of concrete ends. We're refurbishing them, but they still need to stay out there and kind of still be promoted, as well as these lampposts with origami on them. We're kind of refurbishing and replacing several of those while still adding actual pedestrian lighting, since these are more decorative.
Okay. Are those, so it says ADA compliant granite cobble river, that's gone through the DAC review?
Yeah, we had a really extensive coordination with our disability access coordinator on this project, both for the river itself and then, of course, the path of travel. And I think, Gene, you had mentioned a few minutes ago, the entire space is on a incline, so you're
Yeah.
really running into, in a typical street, you have sidewalk. You would have a sidewalk, you have your roadway in the middle, and then you just kind of have your curb ramp crossings. Whereas in this case, you don't have any curbs. Everything needs to be walkable. So you're running into a lot of cross slope issues pretty much all over the place, while still creating this path of travel. And as well as you can see with each of these businesses and restaurants, they all need to have an accessible landing for each of their doorways.
Correct. Yeah.
So it was a pretty complicated design, even if it seems pretty simple for the space.
Okay. Are all the trees in the sort of protected planter space?
Sorry, what was?
Are all the trees in the protected planter space?
All the trees that are in the planters are the cherry blossoms. I know that kind of one of the previous members of the public was noting that we're planting 2 varieties of trees. The ones that are showing up green are ginkgos, and those are in just tree wells outside of the planters. But all the ones inside of the planters are the cherry blossom trees. So that all. The intention, of course, is to still have this be part of the Cherry Blossom Festival.
Okay. Was there a consideration to wash out of those at-grade tree basins?
Sorry, what was that?
Have we considered a possible washing out of those tree basins that are at grade? Because I think Brian mentioned that there was a lot of exposed tree roots for the existing trees. I'm guessing that part of the reason is, maintenance, but also part of it is because of washout from rainwater, things like that coming down the street.
Yeah, I think I'll talk with our landscape architects about that potential issue. Along with kind of the regrading the whole space was to was part of the effort was to deal with the drainage issues. Basically, there wasn't much of a kind of cross slope kind of design for a lot of the drainage. So right now we've actually redone it so that it'll more or less go down through the river portion or like around the outside edge of it. So it should actually miss most of the trees or at least funnel away from them.
Okay. Okay, yeah, if you can talk to the landscape architect, see what we can do to try to mitigate that, maybe use of I don't know. I don't know if DG would be appropriate.
Yeah, I'll
But
talk with them
something so that we
about
can prevent the
um,
washout.
yeah, about what the design intention for that was. I want to say
Yeah.
that there was some element of that as for the tree well, kind of whether it was DG or some other kind of um, rocky fines that would go on the top to
Yeah.
help prevent soil washout.
Okay. Okay. And Brian, we don't use tree grates anymore, right?
Brian Ong, San Francisco Urban Forestry. In certain areas, I accept them in like downtown San Francisco, like FiDi, just because there's so
Mhm.
much traffic. Um, but yeah, typically no, we don't um accept tree
Okay.
grates. And I think because of the space is so large and there's
Yeah.
enough walking space, I don't think we need it.
Okay. Um, how about here at 49 South Van Ness? There's tree grates, but I think that the trees
Ye
are sort of in the ground.
yeah, there's
Uh,
the basically what happened was they put silva cells underneath the sidewalk, so it
okay.
creates like less compaction
Mhm.
in the soils. So I think that was one of the main parts of it. We were, I think, again, like an experimentation almost, just seeing how that works with the tree grates and the silva cells. Um, but yeah,
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I had. So I will now close the item and make my recommendations to the director. Thank you everyone for your time. Have a good day.